Hello there, Drew Anish of Whiskey Lore, and today I am not necessarily doing tasting notes on this episode. I am revisiting a whiskey that I have not tasted in 30 years. 30 years. And the reason is because it's a whiskey that the last time I drank it, I got sick. And sick enough that I just gave up drinking whiskey altogether for 20 years. And this is a story that whenever I tell people this story, they're like, oh yeah, I've been through that. Some will say it's Southern Comfort, that's, you got your brand. What's your brand that you got sick on when you were younger? And it's like, you can't touch that anymore. Well, for me, that was Old Number 7 Jack Daniels. And I wanted to buy a mini of this because I knew I didn't want to commit to a full bottle of it, especially if I nosed it and it gave me kind of that bad memory and I was like, no, I just can't drink that. But I have really fallen in love with so many different Jack Daniels whiskeys, from the single barrel, now the new bonded and triple mash, and I love their rye. And I have a great relationship with Jack Daniels now. And so it just seems like this has been a lingering thing hanging over my head that, this was the whiskey that sent me away from whiskey for a long time. Not because of the whiskey itself, but because of the idiot who was drinking it, who, when I was younger, and underaged at the time, got a fifth of Jack Daniels and took a swig of it. It was the first whiskey I ever had, and I just was like, whoa, that's just too strong. But you know what? If I'm going to drink it, I'm going to drink it. And I ended up turning the bottle up and drinking half the bottle in one gulp, basically. No, not one gulp. Multiple gulps, but without taking a breath. And which amazed my friend. And so that became a thing. And so every time we get together, it's like, get a bottle of Jack Daniels. Drew's going to drink half of it, and everybody will be like, whoa. Well, the third time that I did this, I decided I was going to mix it with Coke. And sugar and whiskey do not mix for me. And it's part of the reason why I don't drink cocktails. Yes, I will have cocktails occasionally, but I am not a fan of cocktails for the most part, because I know that sugar and whiskey is a bad combo for me. So it's been a long time since I've had this. So today I'm going to nose and taste this. And it's so funny that for years I was not able to, if you've read the book, I talk about the Tennessee whiskey that shot me away from drinking whiskey for 20 years. And this is the one. And so what happens now that I poured this, haven't tasted it yet, haven't put it in my nose yet, is it, have I overcome my issue with Old Number 7, or will I survive? If this gets graphic, I'll turn my head that way. If anything, part of me is like, how could you get sick off of that nose? I've tasted so much whiskey since I got back into drinking whiskey. Started with Scotch and then slowly moved my way over into bourbon. And so I've, of course, had stuff that's much more harsh than this. Part of the reason I wanted to do this tasting is because I was watching a Ralphie video on Jack Daniels Old Number 7, and he was trashing it, saying it tasted like an old rubber tire or something. I mean, he was just giving it every negative note he could possibly give it. And I thought, when I drank it, I didn't think it was bad. I just drank it, I mean, it was like, okay, it was stronger than anything I had drank before, but it really didn't offend me. And then I saw Horst from whiskey.com also trashing it, and I thought, I need to get myself a mini bottle of it and taste it again, because I can't imagine after tasting single barrel, bonded, triple mash, rye whiskey that they make, that they're making something that bad and sending it out to the masses. Well, I gotta tell them, I don't know what could be offensive about this, other than the fact that it is watered down Jack Daniels. It's and what's interesting is this is not an apples to apples comparison, because when I drank this the last time back in 1991, it would have been 86 proof, not 80 proof like it is now. So it would have been a little bit stronger than this. But even at that, it's got a very light nose on it, and I mean, it's just like the banana nut bread that I like that's in there in the other expressions is not really that prevalent here. I mean, there's a little bit of it down the hatch. Caramel, vanilla, that grain note is in there. Slight bit of nuttiness. I took a pretty big mouthful of this. It's not offensive. It's really actually very easy to drink. I would put this in the Jameson category in terms of drinkability. I mean, I can see why people drink Jack Daniels and Old Number 7, and that it can become a daily drinker. It's mellowed out enough that it just goes down very easy. But for me now, I'm missing some of those characteristics that I like in a more full-bodied, higher proof version of this. So Old Number 7, I wouldn't turn it down. Honestly, if you're going to give me this or Jim Beam, I would take this because I think it's probably more my style. Hits my palate more to what I like. But I mean, it steps away from Gentleman Jack to me, and to me, Gentleman Jack is just way too mellow for me. And so this, surprisingly, after my memories of it, is just very, very mellow. And it's funny, up to this day, since that bad experience, I cannot do shots of whiskey because the gag reflex will come back in. That forces the gag reflex at this point. So that's one of the residuals that's left over from that. I know you guys have had a bad experience probably somewhere down the road. You can list your whiskeys down below. Is there a whiskey that you had that you have a bad relationship with because of a foolish thing on your own end of just consuming too much or consuming it the wrong way or whatever it may be? Mine was Jack Daniels, but I tell you what, I'm just going to erase all of that now, because at this point, it's like, that's very drinkable. I'm sorry, Ralphie, but this is it's not a bad whiskey. It's just a whiskey that serves a purpose. And for me, it's clean. It's got interesting flavors. It's just they're way too muted for me to be overly interested in it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know this is not my traditional where I'm normally doing tasting notes and or giving some history. This is kind of my own history and giving you a little bit background. And this way, if we're ever out together somewhere and you say, let's do some shots, and I go, you will know why. I don't do shots. Just not my thing. Honestly, though, the whole thing about doing shots, I'm to the point where I want to taste a whiskey. Tasting is what's fun. Getting the buzz is just something that comes along with it if you're drinking high proof or you're doing multiple samples. And honestly, at a certain point, the buzz annoys me because it's like, I know I'm losing my ability to taste whiskey because I've had too much, and it's starting to dull my senses. And so, I'm not going to get out of it what I would get if I was coming at it with all my faculties. So, anyway, everybody's got a whiskey they learned from. I learned from Jack Daniels, and I'm glad that I have a great relationship with Jack Daniels now, and that I have put to bed the what would we say? I've just done. I've banished the ghosts, of my fabled past, of my sketchy and somewhat questionable past in terms of my decision making. So anyway, there you go. Hope you guys found this entertaining. I know it was probably not informative, but I'm going to finish this bottle now, and that's gonna be it for the night. I'm going to enjoy it, and then I probably will never buy another bottle of Old Number 7. I will stick with my. It does have some character of the bonded whiskey. Like, bonded is a very proofed up version of this, but so much more flavor impact from bonded. Whereas, like I say, this is just like drinking water. Interesting, but probably not one I'll buy again. Until next time, cheers and Slanjava.